Hey guys, this is Juliette, your host. Just popping in to say if you like this podcast, subscribe for more content. I've been creating some great bonus material for you. Please subscribe and download so I can keep bringing you more permission granted. Thanks for your support. Thank you for listening to Permission Granted. I'm your host, Juliette Ricci Lagman. Today on the pod, we have Mara Williams. Mara is a business coach, certified financial education instructor, author of The Little Books of Big Business, and owner of Success Street Coaching. Welcome, Mara.
Thank you, Juliet. I'm excited to be here.
So happy to have you. Um, I would like to just dive into, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your career history?
What a great first question to start with.
Mhm.
So, I have had a couple different career iterations. I started right out of college in insurance, which was just like jumping into some type of business. And I didn't love it. So when I was having my lunch break, I would go take ballroom dance lessons during my lunch break. And that turned into, I started doing some part-time teaching and actually turned into a lifetime of teaching ballroom dance to beginning people, wedding dances, all kinds of stuff. I had a studio in my home at one point. I did a lot of wedding first dances and father-daughter dances
Wow.
and all of that. I was privileged to be a stay-at-home parent for many years. Have two boys, and during their formation years, I would put them to bed and go upstairs and teach dance in the studio. I did some sales. My husband had our income was kind of based on his primary business, which was a retail store in Seattle. And so I did a lot of support and marketing around that. So I did a lot of support roles. And then
Mm,
um, ultimately, when I was sort of ready to go, what is it that I want to do as my kids were leaving the nest? I decided to get a coaching certification because I was always helping everyone. I was helping him, I was helping a lot of my other friends who were business owners. And so I got a certification as a business coach, career coach, and started really working in that field at that time.
can you tell me a little bit? I have a couple questions actually, but on the coaching side, so your Success Street coaching covers business coaching, money coaching. Can you tell me a little bit about all the things that you do?
Sure. So my coaching certification is general, meaning that I can coach anybody about most things. Coaches are taught to listen beyond just what people are saying, what they're
Mhm.
really saying, have some coaching tools. But because I have been in small business, been an entrepreneur, basically my whole adult life, I really have a heart for and I have a deep understanding of what entrepreneurs and business owners go through. So
Yeah.
I just spend a lot of my time there. I maybe know some intuitive questions to ask. I also have a really big heart for people who are in the wrong career. When you
Mm,
are not feeling like you are in the right place, there's so much angst and heaviness that weighs down. And so through coaching is a creative process. We're creating what we want moving forward. So we can talk about that related to careers, to money.
mm.
I tend to stay away from, I'm not necessarily a relationship coach or that type of coach. It tends to be around earning money and whether it's a career, business, that type of thing.
Yeah, excellent. For the when we've talked before, you just mentioned you still teach. Do you still teach ballroom dancing currently?
I don't. I know how to teach it, but I made a conscious decision probably about 15, 17 years ago that I was done with that part of my career. But if someone needs a first dance, I'll show them a step. I get my dance on. I teach Zumba once a week at a local gym. So I'm always going to be dancing, but I don't do it as a profession anymore.
Oh my goodness. I think it's so great though to kind of keep your toes in that, and it's good for community and your health, just to have that vibrancy in your life.
It is, yeah.
Um, so I met you through Snohomish Networking Women,
Mhm.
and tell me about. I kind of wanted to talk about the something that keeps coming up, the importance of networking and how it plays a role in the your success as an entrepreneur. Can you tell me your experience as I believe you're the president of the
Sure. Yes, I'm currently the president of the Snohomish Chamber of Commerce.
That's right. Excellent. And I attended one of the luncheons there and it was fabulous. And your talk on colors was fabulous too.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Yeah, so the importance of networking, that's something that I have done my whole career, even before I was in coaching. I mentioned I was in a sales role. First, I was in the dance role. I was doing a lot of events. I wanted my students to have a reason to come and take lessons. And so I
Mm,
joined a networking group. I remember my youngest son was in kindergarten, and I'd leave in the morning at 6 a.m. and drive to this networking group and work with these people. And I just really started to understand that if you create authentic connections, those people get to know you beyond your business and they trust you and they start referring you. So I've always
yeah.
found throughout my whole career to be in some type of networking. So when coaching came to the forefront, it was kind of coming out of COVID and there weren't a lot of in-person networking. But finally, when that was available, I said, okay, I'm going to sort of jumpstart my coaching practice and get into networking. So I joined one group. It's a
Mm,
formalized networking group. For those that are interested, it's a BNI group. There's multiple around the world, hundreds and thousands of chapters. And that is a group that meets every week. We get to know each other deeply, not just what our businesses are, but how we can help each other in multiple ways. And from there, those people took me under their wing and said, "Hey, come to the chamber. There's another group over here. Here, come over to this women's group." And so I
mhm.
started to expand my network as I started getting into these groups. And what I found, it's not just about attending the group and showing up, which is actually, let's call that 50% of the way showing up.
Yeah.
But it's active participation. And I've done that two ways. One is making sure that I'm a good referral source. So people are
Mhm.
not going to give to me until they start to build trust with me. And so I'm always looking out for them first and foremost. And number
Yeah.
two, finding ways I can be in leadership. So I'm always going to be in some type of membership committee. Served as the VP in that BNI group about a year ago. I'm currently in the role of president, but the reason I'm in that role of president isn't because I said, "Hey, I want to run everything." It was because that was what the group needed at the time. Before that, I was just a member
Mhm.
at large. I was helping volunteer in different areas, getting to know the board and what they needed. And so that just is sort of the evolution of where it happened. And then I'll roll off of that in a year and a new person will come on, but I'll always stay
Mhm.
involved in some level of leadership because that's where you people really get to know you when you show up and you volunteer and you do things. That's the ultimate level of being part of these networking groups, I think.
Yeah, and it's so in a way that that giving part, and it just grows and grows as time goes on because, they tr like you said, they trust you, they get to know you, and they know what you're all about and that you can, you're there to provide service. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, as you coach a lot of entrepreneurs, what is one of your top pieces of advice that you could provide to them or you do provide to them?
It's a good question. I'm going to give you a sassy answer, and
Yee.
that is that I don't give them advice. That's not a coach's role. So they get 100% free choice of what they want, what they do. I don't tell them at all what to do. In fact, if I do, give maybe we do some brainstorming and I say, "Hey, would you like to brainstorm together?" I'd be happy to give some thoughts and choose and take what you want. But I'm really there to ask questions so that they can
Mm.
hear themselves and they can answer and find their own solutions.
Oh, that is a great answer. I love that so much. Um, so, On on that note, what does coaching with you typically look like? Like, what does a client of yours, do you meet with them twice a month? And what does that structure kind of look like?
That's a great question. A lot of people are just getting to know coaching. It's a newer platform that people haven't experienced. People experience it in the executive world. That's where it's become most
Mm,
known. And so I really love teaching people that coaching can be accessible to everyone, and small business
mhm,
entrepreneurs, leaders in the business community, or who, of course, I love to work with. And it can take a couple different formats. I have individual coaching sessions. People can come in and they can do a coaching session with me either once a month, twice a month, or weekly. I often encourage people to do coaching for at least 90 days if they say they're doing that weekly coaching, because there's a lot of magic and shifts that happen in between coaching. We come back to it each week, but then the shifts and the thoughts happen. I have personally just a program I call it Success Plan. A lot of times people need to come in and really unpack everything and really get it
mhm.
all out. And so this whiteboard that you see behind me, there it is behind me.
Oh, I love it.
I start with that success plan. I start with a 2.5 hour, like a super deep dive. And it could be an individual, or it could be a partnership in a business, a small group in a business. That's who I tend to work with. And we just unpack everything. We just pull it all out. And then we come back and we do another hour and a half of strategy. And then we move into either hourly or sometimes laser coaching 30 minutes. Just depends on what people need. And that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur, is I can adjust and do what they need. And then the
Yeah.
third way that I do coaching, and honestly, one of my favorite ways, is group coaching. I had two group coaching calls this morning already. One of them is focused on marketing and visibility, and one of them is called a success team, where they're all moving and shaking in some way. Entrepreneurship is lonely. I call,
Mm,
the term
yeah.
solopreneurs. We're the chief cook and bottle washer and doing all the things. We don't have time to work on our business. We're always in the business. So people taking a break for an hour and working on their business, especially with some energy and others, it's really a dynamic process. And so I love
Yeah.
group coaching. So those are the three primary ways that I do coaching.
Yeah, just to be able to, on that note, bounce off ideas off somebody other than
Mhm.
yourself, just to get like that affirmation or expand on ideas, like that is invaluable. So yeah,
When you hear someone else say a pain point they have, you're like, oh yeah, I have that too. Or, oh, I have a solution or an idea. It really creates that personal growth movement forward. And
yeah.
there's a lot of trust that's built in these groups. And so it's really, really fun.
Oh, I love it. And how do you feel like, do you wake up in the morning? I'm gonna put words in your mouth a little bit,
Okay.
but do you wake up in the morning and like, I get to go do this today, like jump
A
out of
hundred
bed?
percent. I am a very,
Yeah.
very lucky person. This is my
Oh,
chosen career. And I will tell you, it is part of the whole dynamic from the time I graduated college and had no direction on what classes to take and what to do, and really felt so stuck in my own career
yeah.
with insurance as a 22-year-old. I didn't understand. I barely owned my own car. I just, it really wasn't something I wanted to do, but I didn't know myself well enough to know. And so through the course of my life, I've really figured out some of my touchstones. I love working with groups. I love working with individuals, creating what they
Mhm.
want. So I feel really lucky that I get to be in this business of my choice.
That is amazing. Um, do you have any, you talked about the magic that happens in between sessions. Do you have any that you can share, like success stories or, coaching stories of, hey, this happened and it was a beautiful surprise?
That's a great question. I will say that I have people come in with really specific, they'll say to me, it was like a tornado in my brain. I had so many things going
Mm,
around. And then when we sit down and start to allow it to come out and be expressed, get it on a whiteboard, formulate it into a sentence, then when they leave here, they have that physical pattern of, oh, I said that. Did I really, was that what I meant? Or yeah, that's exactly what I meant. Or I saw it up on the board and it really locked in for me. And so they can process it that next week. And that's where
Yeah.
they'll come back and say, I thought about what we talked about and here's where I am now. So they've been
Uh,
able to move from, point A to point B without having that constant chaos in their brain.
yeah. Oh my gosh. What do you I see you just been over the few weeks I've known you, or a couple months, as a very organized person, and very like, you know go get them kind of do you, when you're working with entrepreneurs, do you find quite a few of them are creative, and so you're just there to support them in that structure piece?
That's an interesting perspective. I don't always think of myself as organized, so thanks for saying that. But I guess it's a learned behavior. And when you're in business, you have certain things that you need to do repetitively. So two parts to it. One is sometimes people use coaching for accountability. I call it
Mm.
soft accountability. I'm not a finger waver. Why didn't you put your social media post up? That is not at all. Or they'll come back and say, I didn't do it. There's no homework in coaching. This is all about
Yeah,
what it is that you want to do. If you didn't do it, then we say, well, why? That wasn't top priority. You didn't have energy around it. Like, get to know yourself. Why didn't you choose to do it? It's not on me if you didn't do it. Um,
yeah.
so uh, ask me your question one more time. Make sure I'm answering the right question.
Yeah, like, do you find just that you're there? Like, I'm a creative person, so someone
Mm,
like me would benefit from working with someone like you, because you've created, this, how do you say, structure, and, kind of routine, and like, and
okay.
do you find it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the routine is the coaching. So you're coming back to the source, to yourself, on a regular basis, whether it's once a month. I have a client, for example, that I work with once a month. I've been working with her for almost 2 years. She's extremely busy. She's a mom. She's got a busy spouse, so she's that primary parent most of the time. And coming into coaching allows her to go like, okay, this is what I need to do for the next month to 6 weeks. We get a plan
Ah,
and it keeps her going. She knows what to do, but it just keeps her on track.
yeah.
People that are creative, let me say it this way. It's easy to have an idea.
Hmm.
I talk about business as a hero's journey. You
Yeah.
get on the path or the road or whatever you want to call it. Everybody wants to get on the path. Everybody has 10,000 ideas, but then you start and you take the first two steps and then it gets hard. You're like, oh,
Hmm.
wait a second. I'm going to go back. I'm going to start this path. I'm going to start this path. So it's the coaching is helping you along when all of the things come out of the side and cause you grief and strife, and it's slower than you possibly thought it would have been, or you have to post something on social that you don't even know how to get on a certain software or whatever. And that's
Yeah.
where we move you forward. A creative wants to stay maybe in the creation mode of what they're going to do, but has trouble getting on the path, maybe. So that might be
Yeah.
a place that coaching helps. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like in entrepreneurship, it's not necessarily a certain type of person, and maybe I'm wrong, a certain type of personality that does it, but the pro is the freedom you have, like we talked about before, in being able to make your own schedule, and create your own, like, I only want to work 3 days a week, or I want my work to look like this, or I want to be active today. And with that freedom, though, there's a lot of responsibility, right? So that's the hard part to get through. And I think that it sounds like that's where you come in, with a lot of the folks that you help.
Yeah, that's a good way to think of it. And even though we have a lot of choices when we're entrepreneurs of maybe we don't start work, like I don't start work at 7 a.m. I don't like to start early. I
I
choose
love
when
it.
I start to work, right? I really have free choice in that. But I also know need a certain number of billable hours. I also know I need to be
Yeah,
at a certain number of networking groups. I track all those things so that I show up in my business the right way. And I have
yeah,
people that help me with certain things. I do most things by myself, but for myself. But it really is something that is a learned behavior. It's like what I taught the class you came to a little while ago about color
Yeah.
code, and there's different personality types, I think for sure in business. So if you're a creative type in business, that doesn't mean you don't have learned behavior to keep a calendar, but your calendar might need to have some fun things on it, some creative things on it that buffer and help you get tasks done that feel mundane, or you may need to turn those over to a bookkeeper or someone that can
Yeah.
do operations for you. So you have to know yourself and know your business and what the number one impact that you bring to your business so things move forward. Like if you're selling, if you're the one selling in the business, you need to be doing that activity.
Yeah. Yeah. And what your strengths are too, right? What you bring to the table and kind
Yeah.
of playing to your strengths.
Yeah.
Not that you're only going to get to do the fun things that you want, but
Yeah.
also, the majority of the time, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before we move on, tell me a little bit about the color code.
The color code is a personality test program that was developed by Taylor Hartman, a psychologist, many years ago. I've used it for probably over 20 years, and it's a simple idea, but it's really a deep way you can move through emotional intelligence and first understand yourself and
Yeah.
then be able to recognize and see others' core motives is what the idea really is going forward. So there's four colors: red, yellow, blue, and white. I'm a
Hmm.
blue, and the blue's core motive is relationship, connecting with people. So
Yeah.
my core is always going to be on a podcast and get to know you and talk to you and hear about your background. A red might be someone typically that's motivated by power. They're really drivers in our
Mm,
society. Yellow is all about the fun. If it's fun, they're there. That's going to be the first reason they do it. And a
I
white
love
is a
it.
bit of a chameleon. They are typically going to be more often data driven, more on the logical side of things, maybe on the quieter side in a meeting, but sums the meeting up at the end really well. And we are a combination,
Yeah.
not a pure this or a pure that. We are typically a hybrid of all four colors. And so when I know who I am, I can have 100% responsibility in how I show up and
Yeah.
how I interact with you. And when I can then recognize it in others, it helps me not feel so much angst of like, oh, why isn't that person making a decision? Because they make it differently than me and how to
Yes.
best serve them. So that's the very basic idea. And there's healthy expressions of the colors and unhealthy and all kinds of things.
And just shining light on the fact that, we're not all the same. So it brings more understanding in how to, because let's face it, in, let's say, a workplace environment or even out in the world in a business, you have to interact with all different types of people and figure out how to make it work. So the best thing you can do is learn about someone and then just try to bring out the best.
That's right. And if you're in a sales role and you're someone who really likes the data and the analytics, but you're trying to sell a product, a service to someone who really just wants to make a decision and go fast, but you're
Yeah.
holding energy back, just something simple like that in a business can really transform how you get to, higher sales, improve your
Yeah.
business. And it can happen at home. You're still navigating, making decisions within the household or extended family members and friends and neighborhood and
Yeah.
HOA, any of those things, we still have that communication. What they call soft skills. That doesn't mean,
Mhm.
in fact, if we could teach more soft skills in schools and, really have that as a foundation for business success, I think people would be happier. There would be a general lack of so much stress and angst that people are facing in the workforce.
Oh, that brings me to teaching of soft skills, also teaching financial literacy. So let's talk about your books,
All
and
right, let's
maybe
do
there's a
it.
new series of books there for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I have a line of books that I started. My first book I wrote as part of a group coaching program that I was leading. It was something that I was learning a particular style of program. And so I thought, I'm not going to have participants do something that I'm not willing to do myself. And I asked
Yeah.
them to pick something that they thought would be beyond what they could do on their own, something challenging. And I decided I wanted to write a book. So I picked things that
Mm.
I loved. I love entrepreneurship and business. I love brownies. It's my favorite dessert. I love youth fiction. I just love reading and all that childhood memory of reading when I was growing up, going to the library. And so my first book, Cat Casey Turns Brownies into a Business, is exactly
Oh,
that. It's set in the fall around around Halloween, which I love.
yeah.
And it taught a business principle that actually was happening in my husband's business, something related to cost of goods sold. It's a bit
Mm.
of a complicated topic maybe for a kid, but I felt like if my husband, who is an experienced business owner, didn't really have a grasp on some numbers, and it just thought people aren't being taught some of these things. And so I put the book out, and it just has kind of this arc has flowed forward where it's connected to a lot of parents and kids. They're
Yeah.
easy to digest. Each of the stories, right now, there's 5 books. Each of the books follows a kid in an entrepreneurship journey. And then as I was writing it, I'm like, well, I'm putting all these different financial literacy topics related to earning and
Yeah.
budgeting, risk, and all the standards, which, by the way, there are standards, and we live in Washington, so there's a Washington state standard. I also use a national standard, and I just started to wrap those in. One of the books, for example, A Boy Wants a Bike, and understanding about the interest rate if he buys it on a contract in the bike shop, and the sales,
Oh,
and just like those type of things, but in story form, so it's fun and easy. And
yeah.
that has taken me all the way forward into this idea that kids really need to learn about money earlier. We're waiting way
Yeah.
too long. By the time a kid is 15, 16, they're getting direct deposit from maybe a job they're in. There's a tremendous acceleration between that point and the time they're 21, 22, when they move out. Typically, they're spending money
Yeah.
on college or future education, getting housing, cars, just all these things that are flooded with them financially. So if the family doesn't have a good language, if they don't have good basics, then there's a lot of chaos that comes. So if we can make it
Yeah.
fun, interesting, and engaging early, then we can let kids springboard. I call them savvy teens. They can really be making much stronger decisions as they get older.
I love that so much. And I think it's so valuable because I remember being in high school, and I think in our history class as a senior, maybe we got like one class or maybe 1 hour on budgeting and, paying your rent and such like that. So it would have been lovely to have literally a whole semester or two financial literacy, and that's what the class is called.
Yeah, and
Um,
financial literacy, I think one of the missing pieces in that is connects back to what we were just talking about, the soft skills. It's
yeah,
not about it's not about how you write the check. Yep, it's great to write a check or understand that it's a
yeah,
debit card, it's coming out of your checking account versus a credit card, some basic skills. But it's also about the decision, like, okay, today I would like a coffee, but
yeah,
tomorrow I would like a vacation or a car. So am I going to, how that emotional piece that I'm spending,
yeah,
like talking the difference between, penny pinching to being a savvy spender, thinking
yeah,
future thinking. There's actually a reading literacy component to financial literacy. We know that people who are stronger readers are actually better with financial literacy because they could read and understand a contract. They can
wow,
write a proper email to get a job. They could move from maybe being in a janitorial role in a company to moving themselves up one notch and taking inventory because they can fill out
yeah,
forms or data in a computer. So there's a lot more. And I think that's why it hasn't been really locked in and taught because it's
mhm,
complicated. It's not
yeah,
an algebraic equation. It's based on habits. It's based on what our parents do, what we saw at home, and that's why people don't know what to teach or when, and it gets complicated.
yeah. Yeah, and feeling good about it, like feeling good about your purchase versus feeling bad, what emotions are tied to that, or are you always putting yourself in a stressful situation or the opposite, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
This is fascinating. Because this podcast is about living your dreams, what role does financial literacy play in living your dreams?
Financial literacy plays a role in living your dreams because it is a basis for decision making for your life.
Mm,
In coaching, I often teach decision making workshops for young people, business owners, people in any path, because we're not even asking the right question often about a decision
yeah.
that we need to make. And then if we possibly get to it, we're thinking of it as a binary option. And
Ooh.
so, really, financial literacy encompasses your whole span of life. Right now, I'm in a sandwich generation where I have
Mm.
young adult children with a brand new, 1-year-old grandchild. They're making decisions. I have parents on the other side who have spent their life accumulating by earning, being strong, earners and at a different generation mindset. And I'm navigating, helping them make decisions. So we go through the whole arc of our life, making different
Yeah,
decisions based on where we are in life. And that is making decisions about, future us, where we are, having some pleasure today, doing something we love today.
yeah.
And so there's just a lot of elements to it.
And having choices, the ability to have choices when, if you are not versed in finances, you're not going to have those choices in life,
That's
whether
right.
it
Choices
be,
are going to be made for you because either
yeah,
there's just not, it's not an option for you. So when you feel like you can make a choice and have a decision, then that raises the pleasure. If I can decide how I'm going to travel or how I'm going
yeah,
to drive my car forward and back because I'm stuck with the same car for the last 12 years, which is what I've done. I made a good choice at one point, and I'm not just going for what my neighbor has the new car. It's a choice that I've made, but it also allows me to not have payments and work a certain job. There's just choices that
yeah,
decisions that impact our happiness, that who we spend our time with. I call it keeping up with the Joneses or the
yep,
neighbor. If we're chasing after that, that's not really happiness. But if we can find what our true pleasure are, where and it's not just money, by the way, that you're spending your time. It's
yes,
it
yes.
costs you when you do things, whether it costs you to get in that car and drive a longer commute or all those things cost.
Hmm. Yeah, and just the way you spend your time, and time is the most valuable
Mhm.
commodity, as we know, because you can't necessarily get that back. So,
Nope, you can't take it
yeah,
with you, and you've
yep,
gotta spend it. So every day you have a choice, and you're not gonna wake up every morning and say, okay, what's my big choice for the day? But if you have bigger arch goals of what those long-term choices are, there's
yeah,
also something I talk about, I call it low-hanging fruit. When things come your way, when a particular training or school, maybe when you're young, is available, and you take that route because it's right there, it's easy to pick, and then you gain a
yeah,
skill. I was talking to some people yesterday about shop. They were talking to a couple of guys, and we were talking about getting kids to learn about welding and construction and those type of trade
oh,
industries. And some
yes,
of the schools don't offer shop anymore for various reasons, but they tend to be in a certain area, whereas some of the north schools, a lot of them have shop. And we are talking about why, but that low hanging fruit for those kids to earn and learn a trade or a skill because it's right,
yes,
easy access to them, take it, do it. And it happens for
yeah.
adults too. Whenever, if there's something that we're interested in that's easy access, that doesn't cost us to have to drive or move or something, those are choices we make along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, the easy route or the difficult route or all of those things. And I'm definitely not minimizing trade because it's so it's
Yeah, and
valuable.
I'm not
And yeah,
minimizing making a hard decision. Like if it's something you want,
yeah,
go for it. I'm just saying be aware of what's around you. Put yourself
yeah,
in situations where things can move forward for you in an energetic way. Those are the
yeah,
things we're looking for versus just letting things happen to us or hoping. But we sometimes, especially as young people or someone emerging out of a transition, we're trying to pick a direction, an
yeah,
earning direction or a living direction, and kind of pulling back the lens and thinking about it in the broader sense. And well, what's right around me? And if I were to move either physically or just energetically towards something, a group of people or something, what can move us forward. So I'm not trying to be so um, wide on this topic, but really there are things that help us move forward.
yeah, and not just necessarily letting things happen to you. You're
Mhm.
making those decisions in a wise way, in a contemplative way, and taking your time if you need to, and all those things. Um, on the so your books, where can people purchase them?
The books are available widely through Amazon, Barnes and Noble online. You can go to the littlebooksofbigbusiness.com and there's
Amazing.
links there. I have a really fun program that makes it easy for parents to get in or grandparents, anyone that wants to get it for kids. It's a subscription box and it comes
Beautiful.
every other month with one book along with another project that I developed called the Let's Play Money packets. And these are printed activity packets, they're about 16 pages based on grades kids K through 6. And they color a lot of coloring, but a lot of interwoven business, entrepreneurship, and life skills activities in there.
Um,
And so they get two packets in each box. So, for example, the April, May packet came for this month with one book and then kind of a little fun thing. So you can just go get the books, it's great. But if you also want an integrated way to bring this into a household or a group, that's a really fun way to do it.
and the subscription can be it's through your website,
Yeah,
correct?
they buy that directly through the littlebooksofbigbusiness.com. Yeah.
Do you have just for the visual viewers,
Sure.
you have a book you can show or the packet or
Yeah. I've got a couple things on my desk here. So the books
yay.
themselves, let's look at some books. So here are some sample books right here. So there's Kat Casey, Transforming
Wow.
Your Business. That's the first one right there. And then her friend Emma, her grandparents live on a Christmas tree farm. She learns to become a bookkeeper.
Love
Then
it.
there's Max. Max, he's the one that wants the bike, and he has pets. That's his dog, Sammy the Smart. And he
Oh,
loves to train animals and also loves to sketch them. So he starts a animal business. And let's see who else I've got here. I've got Nick Frank. Nick travels to an island. My mom lives on an island in the South Sound, and so this is kind of going on the island, things that I know about and love. And he becomes his
I
grandpa's
love it.
apprentice. So this is a great trades book. It talks about kids becoming an apprentice and learning the trades. And
I
then
love it.
last year I published Tim Young. This is the farmer's market book.
Oh,
And this one is really a highlight of the program I do with the Chamber of Commerce and the farmers market with the kids learn about starting their own business with their own product and developing something and selling it at the farmers market. So those are the current
incredible.
business or books. And then I have one coming in the fall that's going to be uh, actually published in English and in Spanish. So it's a girl named
Mm.
Maria Martinez. And so that one's coming in
Oh,
the fall.
oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Um, and you said the books are geared towards was it grade school, kindergarten through sixth grade?
Yeah, each of the kids in the books are 11, 12 years old. So I've got kindergartners that sit and love to learn and listen to them. I've got older kids. There's that jaded age when kids get to be about, 16, 17. They
Yeah.
might not, they might think it's too babyish, but once they get over that, adults love the book. There's all kinds of topics in there. So they actually, the secret is they really weren't written for kids. That's just the genre I liked.
I love it.
That's where it stuck. So I have lots of adults that love them and are happy to read them. But it's kind of become more of my mission to teach kids about I think of it this way, teaching financial literacy through entrepreneurship, it's the gateway because they get so much learning. So that's kind of where I've landed.
Yeah, and it's kind of a sweet spot for you because you have so
Mm.
much experience and knowledge. And then recently you started a podcast. Can you tell me more about that?
Called the Let's Play Money podcast. I haven't put one out yet. Maybe by the time this airs, it'll be out. I've recorded three. They're just doing some final editing and getting them out. And I
Very
put off
good.
doing a podcast for a long time because I just wasn't really sure which point of view it needed to go. And I've been very, very busy writing books and creating packets and doing a lot of
Yeah,
that creative work you're talking about. But I think it's time for me to really step into that thought leadership place of why, how, when, all the pieces around teaching kids financial
yeah.
literacy. So I decided it's time to talk about it. So it's going to drop pretty soon, actually.
I'm so excited. So we'll put in the show notes, we'll add your website and such like that, and then follow up with you, and advertise your podcast because I think it's really important to get the word out and have people know, they don't teach that in school. So we just have to, it's like, a lot of folks take after school art classes, even locally. I have a friend who that's her full-time job, and it's such a valuable resource because we need that.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
I think the one thing that's hard to communicate, and I'm hoping the podcast helps with, is using coaching language in
yeah,
financial literacy. So again, it's not a black and white conversation you might have with your kid or your spouse or a friend. There's when someone is in, we can coach each other, even if you don't have a certification, we can still ask powerful questions, open-ended how and what questions. And so if the kid
yeah.
has any, how do you want to spend that? How did that work for you? What would you do differently that time? I want parents to hear that language so they can start using it with kids. And I think a podcast is a good way for them to really integrate that in and start practicing it.
And potentially folks can play it in the car on the loudspeaker so everybody can listen in, or they
Yeah.
can play it while they're making dinner, going for
Yeah,
a walk, obviously.
exactly, exactly.
The podcast itself currently is a series, correct? But then later you might add interviewees and such like that, or is it going to ebb and flow between the
Well,
two?
that's a good question. Two of them I have recorded have just been me, and one I have interviewed a parent who's been using a lot of my programs with his daughters, and that's going to
Mm,
be really, it's really, I've interviewed him. He's got some great stories. I set the goal for myself simply to do 10. I wanted to do it kind
mm,
of as a season because I didn't want the pressure of having to drop a new one every week. I just
which
didn't feel
is,
like, yeah, I'm new to the podcast world. So I'm going to start with just doing 10, seeing what the feedback is, what people are asking
uh,
more about, and then meet that need. I have some people in mind to interview, some thought leaders in coaching and in play-based learning, those type of things, but I want to
mm,
drop a couple of basics so they can see where I am so they can feel confident coming on to them as well. So just like starting any business or any project, you have
yeah,
to take those first steps. I'm as new to podcasting as other people might be to starting a business or something. And so I'm, leaning into mentors, watching what you're doing, getting
yeah,
tips and tricks. I've had someone that's helping me. And so I hope to meet a need that people have and find
yeah.
out how I can best be of service with it.
I love it so much. One of my favorite podcasts is Glennon Doyle.
Hmm.
We Can Do Hard Things,
Hmm.
and I remember, her and her fellow cast members, her team, they have been going hard for I don't know, 3, 4 years. I'm not sure, but I remember one of the episodes they said we didn't know we could take a break, and there were seasons, and I'm like, that is brilliant because nobody talks about that.
Right. Yeah, when you're trying, especially when you're a creative, like if I'm writing, I may have a lot to put out into my, onto my keyboard. But then you have to fill the well up too. You have to be
Yeah.
able to go, have breaks, have space so that
Mm,
it gets filled again. And so I can see that as a podcast piece too. It's like, okay, I've got
yeah.
some out breath that I really want to push, but then I need to kind of collect and go back out. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to go with an energy that I know works for me.
I love it. I think that's brilliant. And you can, it can co-align with, you have X amount of books already, so you can, just bring it all together. Um, so we're just about to wrap up. I have two more questions. One is, what does the future look like for Success Street Coaching?
Future of Success Street coaching. It's a lot, I'd say it's a lot like being a dance teacher. Once
Mm,
you are know how to dance, you're always going to do it, whether or not you're teaching it and having your studio open or so forth. Success Street coaching is a lot like that. I feel like becoming a coach has been a lifelong gift that I
yeah.
can really take the time to stop and listen fully to another human being. And
Hmm.
so I will always have some level of coaching in my life when I'm, you know, 80, 90, 100 years old. I will always have, whether or not it will be a shingle on the door, that I'm working. But for me, I really love for the coaching and the book programs to start to meld over. I'm going to be coaching
Mhm.
a group of teens at the Boys and Girls Club this summer. So
Oh, very good.
want the coaching to evolve around career development for them. So I want the
Mm,
coaching to really lean into the teens, and I want to continue helping parents understand the coaching model and grandparents so they can continue to use it. It's just such a beautiful language. We're really listening versus doing a lot of talking and advising like we started with. So Future of
yeah.
Success Street Coaching is a creative process. It's going to follow me kind of through my path of what I want for my life, but it's also going to intertwine pretty greatly with the books and programs that I do.
And I love that answer. And I love the idea of I've had other guests where, they become an expert in a modality and then they're like, okay, well, it's not about competition. It's more about how can I teach other teachers at this point so we can spread the word,
Yeah.
and get the essentially help people and get the message out there. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's true. Coaches love each other. We all work together. I was on a coaching call earlier today. There were three of us coaches on there. We coach each other. We really want the industry to be wider than just the exclusive. If your company can afford to pay for it for you, we want
Yes.
to be attainable for everyone. And there's a lot of different types of coaches, relationship coaches, leadership coaches, business coaches, coaches for moms, wellness. There's a lot of different styles. So
Life coach. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so I would just, in fact, I'll just give a plug. Next week is International Coaching Week. It's the week we
Ah,
celebrate coaching. So if you haven't had a chance to do coaching, it's a great most coaches offer some type of, taster. I do a connection call on my website.
yeah.
People can sign up for a 30-minute coaching call. So just try it out and experience coaching. I think it's just a great language to interact with fellow human beings. And so try it out.
Yeah, brilliant. I've in my tenure had health coaching and life coaching a couple of times, and it's all been very fruitful. And that initial meeting is really important to just see if you're a good fit, and then go from
For
there.
both parties, for the
Yep.
coachee and the coach, it's about a partnership is coaching
Yeah.
and you're moving forward. So you just want to find someone that is where you are currently. Have people who have coached with, coach A over here, and then they're ready for just a different way to coach. And so they try a different flavor. It's like, having a coach that's mint chocolate chip versus strawberry. They're both coaches, but you just get different flavors of coaching. So both are
Exactly.
yummy.
Exactly. And yeah, it's all about where you are at that point in your life. Um, my last question is there anything else that you would like the audience to know about you or your business?
What I would want my audience to know, I would tell people, I think it's more about where I am in life. I'm 55 years old, so I don't know if you call
Mm.
that midlife or not, but let's pretend. And
Mhm.
what I would say is you must do what you love. That's an old Barbara Sher
Mm.
saying,
Mm.
by the way, stealing that from her. I've used a lot of her programs and things as I do my work. And so you if you can take one step today that's toward who you really are and what you love, that is the self-actualization process of life, of moving forward and
Mm.
growing, and start discovering what it is you like. What flavor ice cream do you like? Just like I always say, I love brownies. That's my favorite
Yeah.
dessert. And I know that about myself. Sometimes we find out first what we don't like because we're afraid to choose things, but go toward
Yeah.
things that raise your vibration, towards things that make you happy. I published my first book for myself as a challenge, and then people embraced it and got interested in it. But it's my passion project. It fills me up all the way to the top. And so just do things that do that for you, and
Mm.
I promise the right thing will happen along the way. It doesn't happen instantly, but you will have I think, a more fulfilling life if you go towards things you love.
Oh, I love that so much. Yes, chasing your excitement and what brings you joy. Thanks for listening, everybody. I'm so grateful you were able to join us today. Please share and like and review this podcast. Also, if you have any comments or questions about anything, I would love to hear from you. You can reach me at juliettericci@gmail.com, and info is in the show notes. Till next time, have a great week.